There we go. All right, good evening, ladies, and welcome. We're so glad to have you here for our August National Virtual Gathering. These online gatherings happen the first Wednesday of each month, and we're here together for 1 hour, 8 p.m. Pacific or 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time. My name is Nancy Anderson, and I have the joy of serving as the media director for the National Ladies Homestead Gathering, or NLHG. We're a national nonprofit organization where women come together to share and celebrate all things homesteading. Whether you're raising goats, growing herbs on a balcony, or somewhere in between, you belong here. We currently have 27 chapters across the country, each meeting monthly, along with a vibrant private online community. It's a place where women are encouraged, supported, and seen wherever they are on their homestead journey. Our purpose is to empower women through homesteading, and our mission is to share knowledge, build community, and grow friendships. If you're already part of our community, thank you. We are so glad you're here. And if you're watching this replay later on YouTube and want to get involved, it's easy. Just head to www.nlhg.org and sign up. Joining our community is free, and it's the best way to get connected. Now, I'd like to take a moment to thank our VIPs, our very invested partners. For just $35 a year, VIP membership covers the real-world costs of running a national nonprofit, things like insurance, marketing, our website, and launching new local chapters. It's important to note that everyone involved, from our national board to our local chapter leaders, is 100% volunteer. No one earns a paycheck. We give our time because we believe in supporting each other and building this incredible community of women. And VIPs get some fantastic benefits in return, including discounts, exclusive content inside our VIP vault, and a chance to promote your own business within the community. Speaking of perks, our NLHG swag shop is open. If you're on a mobile device, you'll find it near the bottom of your Mighty Networks home screen. If you're on a computer, look for swag shop near the bottom of the left-hand navigation bar. We are also thrilled to welcome our newest partner, the homesteading family. They exist to help families grow, preserve, and thrive through classes, a weekly podcast, a beautiful magazine called Homestead Kitchen, and more. As a VIP, you now get 30% off full price digital products, excluding subscriptions, 10% off the Homestead Kitchen magazine, and 10% off a gold membership upgrade. You can find all the details and access your discounts by logging into your VIP account at www.nlhg.org or by joining as a new VIP today. As a reminder, tonight's replay will be posted in the VIP vault by tomorrow and on our YouTube channel in about 2 weeks. If you haven't explored our YouTube channel yet, I highly recommend it. There are over 45 previous virtual gathering replays, and they are full of amazing knowledge. I've really enjoyed going back and watching them myself. And now it's my pleasure to introduce tonight's guest speaker, Carol Fitzpatrick. Carol retired from teaching Spanish, French, and German in Pennsylvania Public High School in 2005. In 2008, she relocated to Walton County, Georgia, trading in snowy winters for sunshine. Though she initially planned to spend her time biking, she found herself drawn more and more to gardening. She joined a local garden club in 2012, became a master gardener in 2017, and now serves as the recording secretary for both her garden club and the Walton County Master Gardeners. Carol also leads the Walton County Master Gardeners Speakers Bureau. We are so honored to have her with us tonight. If you have any questions during Carol's presentation, please type them into the chat. We'll hold a Q&A session during the last 10 minutes of our time together. And Carol, I'll pop back on the screen briefly to give you a 5-minute warning towards the end. So let's give Carol a warm welcome.
Okay, I'm Carol Fitzpatrick, and we're going to talk about fall is the best time to plant. Keep in mind, I live in Walton County, Georgia, which is due east of Atlanta. I know some of you are in Idaho and I think Washington State. Fall may not be the best time to plant where you live. We work under the auspices of the University of Georgia. They want you to understand that they are an equal opportunity institution. They do not discriminate against anyone. And if you have any special needs, they'll be more than happy to help you if they can. If you would like a PDF copy of this PowerPoint, you can find it on our website, which is waltonmastergardeners.com. On the main menu across the top of the screen, you select resources. Then you go down to PDF copies of gardening talks. And under fall 2024, you're going to choose fall is the best time to plant. Okay, what we will learn tonight. Why should we plant in the fall? Some important fall activities, preparing the soil, general planting instructions, and they are the same instructions whether you're planting a tree or an individual flower, preventing winter damage, and starting a brand new bed without the need for chemicals. Okay, what exactly is fall? I think autumn might be a more proper name for the season, but I call it fall. According to the calendar, it officially begins around September 21. I think it depends on the phases of the moon. Sometimes it's the 20th. In reality, it starts when the winter cools off, which around here is not going to be in September. Best time to plant if your ground does not freeze in the winter is between late September and late November. And you should do your final planting 6 weeks before the first frost. And I realize it's kind of hard to guess when the first frost will be, especially if you want to be 6 weeks before that. But you want to stop planting before it gets really cold outside. Happy fall, y'all. Okay, good reasons to plant in the fall. The soil is still warm from the summer, the air has cooled down, and plants like both of those situations. A lot of the insects have come to the ends of their life cycles. There's less disease. I don't know about where you live, but around here we can pretty much count on very little water, very little rain, July, August, and sometimes into September. But when autumn comes around, it starts to rain again. So there's less water stress on the plants. Planting is much more pleasant when it's not 95 degrees outside and humid. And anything that you plant in the fall will have a head start for next year's spring growth spurt. When I moved to Georgia, I was very surprised to learn that things continue to grow during the winter here. The soil doesn't freeze hard for the whole winter. So roots grow all winter long. And we have plenty of rain in the fall, the winter, and the spring. So because the roots are growing all winter, the plant is much more capable to have its spring growth spurt next year. Summer heat and drought are very hard on plants. The best soil temperature for plants is between 55 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit. And we'll discuss on following slides how to find the soil temperature. And nurseries are often putting their plants on sale because they don't want to have to take care of them over the winter. So these are all good reasons to plant in the fall. Now, how do we find the soil temperature? Those of us in Georgia can go to georgiaweather.net. And I am sure that every other state has something similar to this. Just Google, find the soil temperature in my area. So if you look on the left here, we can plug in our zip code where it says nearest stations. And then you get a drop-down box. And I live in Social Circle, Georgia, which is population 5,000. So we don't usually appear on maps. So the nearest city that I could find on this drop-down box was Covington, which is 10 miles away. And there it told me that the air temperature was 88 degrees, relative humidity was 41.9. You had to scroll down to find the temperature 2 inches below the soil level, which was 90 degrees. 4 inches below was 83, 8 inches below was 79, and the soil moisture was 15%. So I presume you could buy a thermometer that you can put in the soil to measure the soil temperature. I would much rather just check the internet. Important fall activities. We should all be keeping a garden journal. So you sit down and you think about how all your plants did this year, what worked, what didn't work, and you write that down. When you're planting in the spring, you should make a list of what you're planting, where you're putting it. During the summer, you keep track of how well it does. Then you consult your journal and you make plans changes for next year. So maybe a sun-loving plant was on the east side of your house and it didn't get enough sun. So you might want to consider transplanting it for next year to the south side. Now is an excellent time to get a soil test. Every county in the United States has a county extension agent, and they have brown paper bags that you can go pick up for free. And on the front of the bag, they ask for your name and your email address and what you're going to be planting. So exactly what crops you're going to plant. And you dig up samples of your soil from that area. You mix it in a clean container. And then you fill the brown paper bag maybe half full. And you bring that back to your county extension agent. There is a fee for each bag that you turn in. In Walton County, Georgia, it's currently $10 per bag. And then by email, you will receive a list of what nutrients you would need to add to the soil for the crop that you're planning to grow. Because if you want to grow flowers, you need different fertilizers than if you're trying to grow grass. So why would we do this in the fall? Well, you can add the nutrients now, and they're worked into the soil and ready to go by next spring. Also, not too many people are getting soil tests in the fall. Everybody's getting soil tests late spring when they're ready to plant. So the labs have a backup of bags of soil waiting to be tested. If you do it now, you'll get your results much more quickly. Another thing to think about now is, do any of your plants need to be divided? If you're going to divide them, the best way to do that is to dig up the entire plant and then slice down the middle of it with a shovel. There will be a certain amount of damage to the roots when you do that. Ideally, you could just pull everything apart with your hands. I've been able to do that with bulbs sometimes. Sometimes you can't. So I know some people make very small little divided things that they then plant separately. I usually go for half because I'm sure some of my things that I've chopped up are not going to be happy. Do some of your plants need to be relocated? Now is a good time to do that. What should we plant in the fall? Deciduous trees. Deciduous just means they lose their leaves in the fall. Around here, deciduous trees are buckeyes, dogwoods, maples, oaks, redbuds, among others. You can plant winter flowers. Even in Pennsylvania, we could plant flowering cabbage and flowering kale, and it would last until we had the first real snow. Here we can plant dusty miller. Pansies are cold season flowers here, violas, and snapdragons. Now is a good time to plant spring flowering bulbs. And you can plant cool season vegetables such as broccoli, cabbage, kale, and potatoes. Okay, let's plant bulbs. I love bulbs because they are very easy, they are very forgiving, and you get beautiful, beautiful flowers with not a whole lot of effort. So if you look at the bulb in the picture, part of it is pointy and the other part is flat. They should be opposite each other. The pointed end should go up because the stem, the leaves, and the flowers will come out of the pointed end. That means the flat side should go down because the roots come out of that. The bulb should be planted twice as deep as the bulb is high. So if you have a 2-inch high bulb, there should be 4 inches of soil between the top of the bulb and the end of the soil, ground level. I can tell you from experience, if you make a mistake, bulbs will usually correct it. I have planted bulbs too deep. I don't think I got anything for the next year, but eventually the bulbs work their way up to the level that they want to be, and I now get flowering plants. One time I had a summer flowering bulb. It was a Kawa, and it just didn't look right. So after it was done blooming, I dug it up, and I had managed to plant it with the pointy side going down. So the stem came out, it went down, it did a U-turn and came back up out of the ground, and it did plant. So, I mean, it did bloom. So I just dug it up, turned it around the way it was supposed to be, and everybody was happy. Some bulbs produce flowers in early spring, some in mid-spring, and some in late spring. And here we can see early springs include snowdrops, crocus, anemones, muscari, which is great hyacinths. We have early tulips, early daffodils. We have mid-season daffodils, mid-season tulips, fritillaria. And we have late-season tulips, late-season daffodils, lilies, Dutch iris, and allium. So if you plant a variety of bulbs, you can have bulbs from basically March through May. You can have them blooming March through May. A very important thing to remember about bulbs is after the flower dies, you can cut off that whole stalk. You cannot cut off the leaves because bulbs get their nutrition through the leaves, not through the roots. The roots are just there to keep the bulb anchored in the soil. So if you cut off the leaves, and I learned this before I became a master gardener, I learned it by experience, the bulb dies. Here we have some more early, medium, and late season bulbs. And you can see they're all different heights. Okay, what should we not plant in the fall? We should not plant broadleaf evergreens. Broadleaf just means they're not like needle evergreens, like pine trees. So this includes azaleas, boxwoods, camellias, hollies, magnolias, and rhododendrons. Because cold winter winds can dry out the leaves, and that could conceivably lead to the death of your plant. So you should wait till next spring to plant your broadleaf evergreens. Okay, unfortunately, you may not be able to just dig a hole and plop the plant in there and you're good to go. You might need to prepare the soil. Here in Walton County, Georgia, we have red clay. And I think it looks kind of pretty. It's about the color of terracotta pots, but it is not real good to plant in, and it is real hard to dig a hole. So before you start to put your plant in the ground, look around for hazards. Buried building supplies, especially if you're in a brand new house, rocks, chemical spills. If I saw evidence of a chemical spill, I think I would just never, ever plant anything in that area. If I really wanted to put something there, I'd probably dig up all the soil and replace it. If you have clay, you need to dig holes, dig it up. You can do your soil sample now. And your soil sample will come back and tell you how to amend the soil. Amending the soil just means you add good things to it. You would add fertilizer. You would go to a big box store and buy bagged soil, which will be labeled things like topsoil or garden soil. You can make compost, which is just broken down leaves and twigs and other organic materials. You can buy bagged soil. I personally use something that's roughly 1/3 garden soil, 1/3 topsoil, and 1/3 a soil amendment that I purchase. And I just mix that up and add that to my planting hole. Okay, if you buy a plant and you don't have time to put it in the ground immediately, keep your plants in a shady area. They're going to either in a pot or they're going to have a burlap bag around the root ball. Keep the roots moist but not soggy. And always water your plants well, probably the day before you plant them. Okay, basic planting instructions. First, every plant that you buy should come with a printed tag on it. And the tag will tell you how tall the plant's going to grow, how wide it's going to grow. If it's a perennial, which means it will come back year after year, or if it's an annual, which means it's only going to last for one season. This would be flowers. And it tells you how much sun it wants. believe what the tag says and follow those instructions. So your plant might need full sun, part shade, or full shade. If you take a plant that wants full sun and you put it in the shade, excuse me, it might live, but it won't be happy. And if it's something that's supposed to have flowers, you probably won't get as many flowers. You may not even have any flowers. I just tried to put a pollinator garden at the clubhouse in my subdivision. Somehow there was more sun in that area when I moved in there in 2008. The trees have grown and I didn't really pay attention. So the plants are still alive, but we don't have any flowers this year. So you figure out what growing conditions the plant wants and you find a location that meets the needs. So you can either buy the plant first and then find a good location for it, or you can say, hey, I want to put a tree in this location, and then find a plant that meets the needs that that location provides. You want to dig the hole wider than the root ball. Now, if you buy a plant that's in a pot, which is probably what you'll have, the roots fill the entire pot. So you need the hole wider than that. The experts usually tell you to make the hole 3 times as wide as the root ball. Those of us who are dealing with clay, we're happy to just make it wider than the root ball. It needs to be the same depth as the root ball or the pot. You add water to the bottom of the hole. This will encourage the roots to grow towards the water. Now you remove the plant from the pot. And if you look at the man in the photograph here, he is holding his tree as close to the roots as he can get it. We're always tempted to pick up these things toward the top of the trunk. That is exactly the wrong thing to do. You want to support the tree as much as you can. So hold it where it's heaviest. Now, I never know how to express this when I say injure the roots slightly. What you want to do is kind of massage them. As you can see, this person is doing with their hands. And if you damage the roots a little bit, like you kind of bruise them, there are hormones there. And the plant will send these hormones to the spot that you just damaged a little bit to heal whatever damage you've created. And that encourages new root growth. And you really want these roots to take off growing right away. Now you put the plant in the center of the hole that you have created. You want to plant the new plant at the same depth that it was in the pot. You don't want it deeper, you don't want it shallower. If you plant it deeper, you're going to bury things that should be exposed to the soil, like the trunks of the plant. If you plant it shallower, some of the roots are going to be exposed to the air, and that is not good. So don't plant it any deeper or shallower than it originally was. Now, backfill around the plant. Backfill just means you take the soil that you dug out of the hole and you put it back into the hole. If you are amending the soil, excuse me, you should add your soil amendment to the soil that you dug out of the pot and mix it together as much as you can. So then you put the mixture back in the hole and you tamp it down maybe with your shovel. Definitely not by standing on it, because believe it or not, that can damage the roots. And you need to make sure that the soil is tight against the roots, because if there's space after the roots won't grow into that spot. They won't grow into a vacuum. They only grow into soil. So tamp the soil around the plant, being careful not to injure the roots. We're not done yet. Now you water. And then you place a 3-inch layer of mulch over the soil surface. Mulch is basically anything organic. You can buy bags of small wood chips. Around here, a lot of people use pine straw. As far as I can tell, pine straw is pine needles that dried up and fell off the pine trees. And the people who sell mulch will often tell you to make your mulch pile 6 inches deep. I think 3 is plenty. You don't want the mulch to go all the way up and touch the trunk of your tree, because that encourages disease or If there are insects in the mulch, it encourages them to climb, to go right into the tree. So you should stop about an inch away from the trunk. Do not fertilize on this at this point. You probably want to wait until next spring to fertilize. Taking care of newly planted ornamentals. Ornamentals are trees and shrubs that you planted for their appearance, as opposed to like fruit trees, which you planted for food. You want to water deeply and regularly. They pretty much tell you 1 inch of water per week. A good way to, you want to water the roots, not the leaves. So a good way to water is to get your garden hose, put it into that mulch around the plant, and put it on a drip and just leave it there. Go away. I would recommend you set a timer, because I could easily see myself forgetting to come back and turn the hose off. If you've planted 3 things, you're going to have to come back and move your hose 2 times. Again, do not fertilize right away. Wait till the plant is established. Okay, winter damage. Cold weather can damage all parts of the plant, the fruit, the stems, the leaves, the trunk, and the roots. And here we see cold weather damaged holly leaves. Okay, how can we prevent this? Well, for starters, we can choose plants that can tolerate winter temperatures. Generally speaking, anything that you see in a big box store like Home Depot or Lowe's will probably survive where you live, because I believe those places guarantee their plants. So if it dies within 12 months, you can take it back and get your money back, or maybe you get 50% of your money back. So when they get a lot of returning dead plants, they're not going to order those plants anymore. Choose an appropriate planting site, which means, the sun that the plant wants. Do not fertilize in late fall, because fertilizing causes growth almost immediately. So if you have a lot of new growth in late fall and then it freezes, all that new growth turns black and falls off and dies. Do not prune or transplant in late fall for the same reason. Pruning encourages growth. So, meaning once the weather gets really chilly, like if you have to put on a warm jacket to go out and prune, that is not the time to prune. Protect plants from cold and wind. Provide windbreaks. A windbreak could be a fence, a building, evergreen plantings, temporary structures that you put up just for the winter. You want them on the northwest side of the plant, because the cold winds tend to come from the north and the west. Mulch, which you should have done anyway. You can cover the plant. You can use sheets, blankets, cardboard. Do not use plastic. And especially do not let plastic touch the leaves of the plant, because the next day when the sun comes out, it gets really hot under that plastic and it cooks the plant. You can group container plants so they kind of huddle together and help keep each other warm. Another good thing to do is, before a freeze is predicted, water deeply and slowly, because moist soil will absorb more heat. So here we have some examples of winter protection. On the left, we have container plants that are huddled together, and they also have a nice, looks like a cement wall behind them. On the picture on the right, we have a wall. The evergreen shrubs are protecting those yellow flowers. And the picture in the center is, I'm not sure I've ever seen these in real life, but I've seen them online. They're fabric bags that you can buy, and some of them have a zipper up the side. This one looks like they tied it at the bottom to fit over your shrub. And I'm thinking, well, if you want the shrub to grow big, you're going to have to keep buying bigger and bigger bags, but it will protect your shrub. Okay, you've had a freeze, plants were damaged, now what do you do? You're going to want to run outside the next day and cut off all that ugly, frosty foliage. Do not do that. Resist the temptation. Wait to prune until the freeze has passed. And when you do prune, cut several inches below the damaged tissue. Anytime you're cutting off damaged tissue, you want to go about 3 inches down into healthy tissue. Okay, let's start a brand new bed. So first off, you need to decide where to locate your bed. And you need to consider sun and shade because, not all plants want everything. And you need to be aware of how tall your plant will be and how wide it will be. Because in the picture here, they have indicated a great big flower bed or something that they're planting. And I'm thinking if they plant anything tall up against that house, it's going to hit the roof. So keep that in mind. And also consider the size of your plants at maturity. So what fits in a 6-foot area when it's fresh from the store is not going to fit in there 3 or 4 years in the future. Okay, next is to mow the grass as short as possible. Now, the Walton County Master Gardeners are creating this gigantic garden next to our extension office, and we're calling that the Experiential Learning Garden. So the first thing we did was to create a pollinator garden. So this is all the pictures from us creating the pollinator garden. So the reason I put weeds in there was that this was a field and it was probably more weeds than grass. But anyway, you want to mow it all, basically scalp it. Now, lay out the lines for your bed edges. So you can use a rope, you can use a hose, and then spray paint around the edge of your bed. And one set of instructions I read said, okay, now go back in the house and just think about this for a day or two and make sure that this is really the size and shape of the bed that you want. So, and you can see in the picture on the right, they've spray painted. So when you spray paint, you're going to end up with a painted line, maybe 2 inches wide. So after you mark the perimeter of your bed, you dig a trench. Basically, you cut on the 2 sides of that painted line. And I asked the person who was in charge of the Master Gardener project why she did that. And you're going to be putting cardboard in here, and you're going to be putting compost on top of the cardboard. And that edging was to basically so nobody forgot where the edge of the bed was, and to help contain the cardboard and the compost. Okay, now you want flattened layers of cardboard. So you can maybe go to big box stores and pick up the cardboard that they're throwing away. If you know somebody who's moving, they might have lots and lots of boxes that they're only too happy to give away to you. You can buy cardboard, or you could buy moving boxes. Ideally, you want cardboard with little to no printing on it, because the print is a chemical, and you don't really want to be putting chemicals into your garden, into your soil. So the picture on the right is some homeowner laying down cardboard, and the one on the left is the homeowner, and the one on the right is the Master Gardeners laying down cardboard. Now, they say you can do just one layer of cardboard, but all the edges must be overlapping. You don't want any grass or weeds exposed to the air. Since we had so many people working, once we were working on the second layer of cardboard, there was no telling how many layers of cardboard were already in that spot. But that's okay. You can have as many layers as you want. Just make sure it covers all the grass. Now you want to wet the cardboard. So we have a homeowner on the left wetting cardboard, and on the right, we have a Master Gardener wetting cardboard. And you can see we got a lot of boxes from Home Depot. So while Ron is hosing down the cardboard, people are trying to avoid his water spray and putting down more cardboard for him to hose down. Now you want to cover the cardboard with 3 to 4 inches of compost. And I don't know how big our garden is, but it was big enough to need a whole truckload of compost. So what you're doing at your house, you probably go buy compost in bags. And here we have people laying down compost again. And then on the right, we have the Master Gardener spreading the compost. Now you go inside and do whatever you want to do all winter, and you just sit there back and wait and let Mother Nature work her magic, because the cardboard will break down. And since cardboard started as trees, that's organic material. Next spring, you want to till the compost and the cardboard into the soil. And I would imagine this involves renting a tiller. You could probably do it with a shovel. I wouldn't even think of attempting that with clay. If you have better soil, you might be able to do it with a shovel. And this was planting day, May of 2024. And you can see we laid out all the plants first, made sure we liked the arrangement, and then planted them. We put edging stones around the edge of the bed. It looks nice. It kind of helps keep the grass from growing into the beds. And then you mulch again. So you're 1 to 3 inches of mulch. And we used, I think it was black mulch actually. And so we planted in May, and this is how the garden looked in July. Now, if that sounds like too much work, you can skip the tilling and plant directly into the compost cardboard native soil. I believe you dig all the way through. This is not going to look as nice. Somebody in my garden club lives on a farm, and she had a photo on, excuse me, on Facebook. She just put down like one flattened piece of cardboard and another. I mean, none of the flattened pieces of cardboard touched each other. And then she just put compost on top of them and just planted in that. I think she planted tomatoes. And that would not fly with the HOA where I live, but it's fine at a farm. And, you know, she got good tomatoes out of it. Again, if you'd like a copy of the PDF, go to waltonmastergardeners.com. Click on resources, go down to PDF copies of gardening talks. Fall is the best time to plant, is in with fall of 2024. Okay. So this is our website. You can see where resources is. Oops, that's where we stopped. Okay.
So these are the questions. So Joanne Woods said, hi, Carol, the state was out trimming trees and I had them leave several large piles of freshly mulched wood chips. How best to utilize them throughout the yard or garden? And should I let them break down before spreading?
I think you can use them right away. I would.
And just spread them out, and anywhere you don't have to worry about the heat or anything like that when they're breaking down?
No. It takes, all right. I used wood chips in Pennsylvania, and eventually the whole pile got too deep and I had to dig some of it out. And at the very bottom, after a few years, I had beautiful black soil for those broken down wood chips. So I think that was pine chips.
So if you have terrible soil that has nothing in it, putting mulch or the wood chips over it and letting it sit for a couple of years is really going to help develop that soil underneath, right?
I think compost would be a better bet.
Compost.
And compost
Okay.
is plant material like leaves and the tops of carrots or the veggies and the fruits that went bad in your refrigerator before you got around to eating them. You can make your own. I think if you have like a 3-foot high pile of material that you're composting, you end up with about 1 foot high of compost. So,
Okay.
but you can also buy it in the big box stores already bagged.
Okay. And then Kristen Harris has a question. How do you deal with plants which you unpot and find they are severely root bound?
If you manipulate them with your hands, you could loosen the roots a little bit. Sometimes you can put them in a bucket of water and just keep dunking them in there, and some of the soil will come out. And you can very carefully sometimes untangle the roots and spread them out.
Okay. Melody Gunn asked, would mostly pine chips change the soil Do we have to be careful with what type of compost goes with which plants?
I don't think so.
Pine chips are more acidic.
Yeah, pine chips are more acidic. I was growing impatiens in Pennsylvania. Well, I use cypress chips, come to think of it. But we use pine needles. That's got to be acidic.
Good for blueberries.
Okay, yeah. I don't think it's going to make much difference. But if you get a soil test, it will tell you.
That is a really good idea. I didn't know the extension office could do that. So when you're doing a soil test and you're talking about indicating on the bag what you're going to plant in that bed the next year. Now, do you have to think about crop rotation or doing anything like that when you're doing that planning? Is that something you recommend?
I'm sorry, you broke up.
Sorry.
You're doing a soil
Do you
test.
Do you want to rotate the crops from different beds each year? So should you put that on the bag if you want to plant, and if you had corn one year and you want to put tomatoes in that bed?
What happened?
I don't know. I'm only getting like every other syllable.
I can hear you just fine. It may be me.
I don't know what your question is. You're doing a soil test and you tell them what you want to grow, right?
Yes, I'm going to turn my camera off. Can you hear me better?
Let's hope so. So far, so
Okay.
good.
Do you have to think about crop rotation if you're going to test your soil every year? Should you plant something different in the bed and plan that when you're having your soil tested?
Are we talking flowers or foods?
Foods.
Yeah, you're supposed to rotate, especially like not plant tomatoes in the same place all the time.
Okay. And then another question is, I don't have a garden right now. Can I still do fall planting in containers?
Oh, yeah. Well, you have to keep in mind, the roots are more susceptible to cold air in containers. Like basically everything does better in the ground than it does in a container.
Mm-hmm.
But if you huddle the containers together, that will help. And if you're doing containers, I would probably go with plastic, because ceramic, or especially like terracotta, when the rain gets in there and then it freezes, then it cracks your pot. So you want something that can withstand the cold weather.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Nina wants me to show you a soil test bag. So
Oh, okay, that's perfect.
Yeah, so it's about, I don't know, 3 inches wide. And they want your name, phone, email, and then down on the bottom, tell them what you're going to plant. So if it's like tomatoes or corn or grass, maybe tell them what kind of grass. And
then they give you what type of minerals or what type of
yes,
topsoil
yeah.
or whatever you need to put in there.
Yes.
That's very helpful. It looks like a coffee bean bag to me.
Okay.
So for coffee, I hear that coffee grounds are really good for compost and for gardens. Is that true?
I believe so.
Okay, that is all of the questions that I have. Is there anything else you want to add, Carol?
Happy planting.
Well, thank you so very much. I think the presentation that you gave was very, very helpful. It was very clear with a lot of information, and I like that you gave us the resource to be able to go back and revisit the slides and look at it again. I think it's going to be very helpful. So on behalf of our whole community, I just really would like to thank you for your time this evening and joining us.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. So that's it, guys, for this month's National Virtual Gathering. We will be back on September 3rd, and the topic is going to be sourcing local food, and our guest presenter is going to be Rachel Buck. So thank you all for joining, and we will see you next month. Bye.